Thank you very much. Please be seated, everybody. Today, April 25th, 2015. This is the date I've been working towards over the last 3 years as President of the 7th Division Engineers Association. To make it a memorable one for all those involved. There are a number of reasons behind this. I've always looked upon April as a very special month, and so should all Australians. It is a month that we should dedicate ourselves to the land we love. It was in April 1770 that Captain James Cook first landed in Botany Bay. 100 years ago, today, began the spirit of Anzac, with our soldiers and those from New Zealand landing at Gallipoli in a war they could never imagine. 75 years ago, men came from far and wide to sign up to fight against two formidable forces. The Japanese, and once again, as in World War I, the Germans. In April 1941, an Australian force demonstrated to the world that the German might could be defeated at Tobruk. 70 years ago marks the end of World War II and the start of a new era for all of Australia in multiculturalism. More personally, this year also marks the 10th anniversary of the passing of one of the most gallant and distinguished gentlemen I've ever known. My mate, my hero, my grandfather, Edward Herbert Dibbles, 2nd 5th Earl Corps, or Ted as he was better known. He was one of the most well-known Secretary-Treasurers of this association in the modern era. This year marks the 15th year for my involvement on Anzac Day, and in that time I've only missed one pilgrimage to Sydney. That year I marched in Coast Harbour. I had the pleasure of marching with Grandpa 6 times, with one of those years having 3 generations march together. When Ted's son, my father Barry, joined us the year of his passing. That was a special one, and one I will never forget. They were the best 6 years of my life, and it helped shape me to the person I am today. I always loved to hear Ted's stories about the war, mainly training, and stories when going on leave with the lads, and what they would get up to. One of the most memorable stories was just during the training in Holsworthy, constructing a pontoon bridge to be placed across the Georges River. Unfortunately, it got turned into an oversized rowboat to go paddling up the Georges River whilst they sang sea shanties. All unbeknown to the drill sergeant, who left them and entrusted them to do a job of bridging the river. Needless to say, he wasn't too happy upon the return to find no bridge, no men, but hearing faint singing coming from up the river. Never a dull moment. The 7th Division consisted of 17,000 men. The engineers were the backbone of the division, with 2,500 men. And always were, first in, last out. Their motto is Nulli Secunda. It is Latin for we build and destroy, second to none. Before I welcome our guest speaker to the podium, Brigadier Wayne Budd, I will just fill you all in about him. Brigadier Wayne Budd entered the Royal Military College, Duntroon in January 1979, undertaking studies in civil engineering. Graduating with honours, he was commissioned into the Corps of Royal Australian Engineers. His service with the Royal Australian Engineers included appointments in construction, field, combat and instructional roles. He commanded an independent 21st Construction Squadron and the School of Military Engineering. He has served as head of corps since 2007. Senior level Defence Force roles include Colonel Operations at Army's former Training Command and Chief Joint Plans at Headquarters Joint Operations Command. Brigadier Budd is a graduate of the Army Command and Staff College, Defence Centre for Defence and Strategic Studies, and Deakin University's Masters of Arts program. He has also completed the US Army Combined Force Land Component Commander's course at the US Army War College and participated in the United States Army Battle Command Training Program. Brigadier Budd served in an exchange position within the US Army's 25th Infantry Division and also served as a Deputy Chief of Staff at Coalition Joint Headquarters in Baghdad, Iraq, 2003. From July 2009 to May 2010, he was posted as a Deputy Commander of Joint Task Force 633 and commanded Australia's National Command Headquarters in Kabul, Afghanistan. More recently, Brigadier Wayne Butt was the Director General of Headquarters, Joint Operations Command Project, and subsequently established Infrastructure Division's Public-Private Partnership Branch. He commanded the ABF Counter-Improvised Explosive Device Task Force from August 2010 to May 2014. He assumed his appointment as the Commander of the Australian Army Cadets on May 6, 2014. Brigadier Butt is a Fellow of the Institution of Engineers in Australia and has had industry construction experience on second from defence to the John Holland Company. Additionally, he is a Director of the Royal Australian Engineers Foundation, a charitable organisation which helps return veterans and their families. Please welcome Brigadier Butt.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's an absolute pleasure on this, the 75th anniversary of the formation of the 7th Division Engineers, for me to join you and to talk about you, this organisation, and those great men who were the 7th Division Engineers. Certainly, I enjoyed listening to Peter's presentation of his book, his research of his father's exploits in 2.6, because a lot of what he spoke about was a lot of what I read about as I was contemplating what I talk about here today. I mean, in May 1940, the 7th Division Engineers were formed, and he talked about the march where the 7th Division had to make way for the 8th Division to come in England camp, and they marched up to Bathurst in order to make space for the expansion of the 2nd AIF. And before they came back and embarked in October 1940 to go to the Middle East. If you look at the history of the 7th Division Engineers, and you look at the places, the names, Tabuk, Syria, Lebanon, you come back and the 2nd, 6th that ended up in Java and subsequently became prisoners of war and went through that 3.5 years of hell. The rest of the Division Engineers came back and their names are synonymous with Kokoda and Lade, Milne Bay, Anzac, Shaggy Ridge, the Wow Bulldog Road. These are names that are part of Australian history in terms of what happened in World War II. And finished their campaign in Balikpapan. And some of the famous photos and activities that we see of the engineers that resonate in the history of our great corps. What I don't want to do is so much dwell on those exploits, because they all speak for themselves. And I certainly want to congratulate you as an organisation for the way that you have supported those fellow surviving members of the 7th Division Engineers. And it was fantastic to be here today to see Bill and Norm and Bill, 3 original members, still here actively participating with you as an organisation. But let me commend each and every one of you in this room, because it's because of what you do that the memory of the 7th Division Engineers has lasted in terms of this 75th anniversary of their formation, their deployment and their exploits. As a head of corps for many, many years, I've received copies of your Purple Diamond and been able to read about the stories of the men that were involved in those great campaigns and understand how our sappers who form part of our corps family have weathered the years. And we have a saying in the corps that once a sapper, always a sapper. And when you're part of this family, you will be remembered and you will be supported. And I think it's fantastic that this organisation, 7th Division Engineers Association, that you have bonded together as sons and daughters and relatives and friends, and continue to honour the name and remember the exploits of those original engineers from World War II. Now we celebrate this day, Anzac Day, and it just so happens that this is the 100th anniversary of the landings in Gallipoli that have enabled our nation to honour the sacrifice of men and women that have gone to war in the name of our great country. And and it's not insignificant. And 100 years from the land is equivalent for the first AIF, 75 years since the formation of the 7th Division Engineers and the 2nd AIF, and the great men and women that serve our nation today in many theatres of war across this globe right now. And I certainly appreciate the Commanding Officer of the School of Military Engineering providing you a catapult party and the chaplain today in terms of that continued support for the young men and women who are the modern army in reverence to the exploits of those that have gone before us. Well, let me say, it is the qualities of the people that I have served with as a modern day sapper that always makes me reflect on the qualities of the people that must have served before us in terms of their commitment and sacrifice in the name of our great nation. And I think back to the people of the first, and in this particular case, the 2nd AIF engineers, and I think about their endurance. 6 years was a long war, just like in the First World War, 4 years was a long war. They left, they spent those years away, and they came home. And the resilience that they showed in everything that they did. And certainly it was that camaraderie, teamwork that kept them together. And Peter's stories about what happened with the 2nd, 6th in their captivity during the Thai Burma Railway days showed that it was camaraderie, it was teamwork, it was mateship that enabled them to survive. And the hallmarks in particular of our sapper spirit and the way that we are a family, that we look after each other, that touch of larrikinism that goes with the Australian soldier, but particularly the Australian sapper that I've grown to know and love and command, I wouldn't be in any other corps. And I know that you think the same about your predecessors. But certainly the other thing I saw in reading about the 7th Division Engineers was their compassion and the way that they have honoured, for example, the Fuzzy Wuzzy Angels that helped them on the Dakota track. It's a hallmark of a great soldier who can understand the people that have supported them and the people that they have relied upon. And that's you, the families, the children, the grandchildren, and the friends and relatives that have provided support to return servicemen when they come home. And in this particular case, have done so for 60 years until we get to this day, a 75th celebration of a great engineer formation in the history of the Australian Army. And the name of those men and their exploits lives on through what you as an association do. I certainly thank you as the current head of corps in everything you did. I say continue to do what you do in reverence to what those original 7th Division engineers did. And I hope to be able to read many, many, many more Purple Diamonds and to see that those, did I get the number right, 19, the remaining members are supported to their last in everything that you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brigadier. And now I'll be pleased to be upstanding for the hymn, the recessional. Leave a little bit early due to his RSL commitments. So I'll just hand over to Phil to say a few words, and after that we'll do the wreath lay. Bob Garside will come up with Phil to do the wreath lay, and then we'll do the poppy lay after that. Thank you.
Thanks, Rod. For those people that don't know me, I'm Phil, and I'm not original, unfortunately. I'm a Rio. I would like to be an original. I originally offered my services, and I would have ended up in the Middle East or in Malaya, but I was in a protected industry. But when the Japanese came onto the scene, I was allowed to join up in 1941 at the age of 18. At work, I was the boy. I didn't want to be the boy anymore, so I put my age up 2 years, and from then on, I was accepted no matter where I went as a 22-year-old, I believe. Anyhow, cut a long story short, I did my service and locally at Ingleburn, and then we formed a unit. And when I joined up, my mate and I joined up together, and he and I wanted to go into commandos. We went in together, and when we went up to the section we were signing up, they sent Bill left and Phil right. When we met up again, 10 days later or something, we were only privates. He was on 6 shillings a day. I was on 9 shillings a day. I did a trade course as a fitter, and I ended up as a fitter. And I was fortunate enough to be up in Brisbane when the 7th Division were up there, and I did a job for the engineers. And when I completed the job, it was just a matter of putting a keyway in a shaft, either in the shaft. And the officer said, "You don't want to transfer, do you?" I said, "Yes, please." And he said, "We're going to New Guinea tomorrow." I said, "I'd go anywhere with you blokes. You're 10 foot high, you're going to the Middle East." For an 18-year-old, I went to Magic. Next day, I was on board the ship. We went to New Guinea on a Dakota track for 3 months. After the track, and thanks, General, you mentioned the Bulldog Road. Well, I was on the Bulldog end, and incidentally, the unit I was in is the 2nd 55th LAD, Light Aid Detachment. Now, it was our job to look after the 2nd 4th, 2nd 5th, 2nd 6th, 2nd 9th, and the 2nd 25th Field Park. We were a team of 15 blokes, all specialists, and we always were on the tail end of anything. We had to look after everyone. And there was nothing for me to, being a non-drinker, to go on leave, end up with 2 drunks under my arm, one on either side. So that's how we used to look after each other. I'm a fault finder, and as such, I won't correct anyone today. I have already about not being original. We ended up on the Bulldog Road, and my nickname in the army was Paddles. My feet were 5 inches wide. They couldn't get boots to fit me. I did 13 months in New Guinea in bare feet. I walked across the Bulldog Road, 73 odd miles, up to 10,000 feet, down the other side into Wow, just to get a tooth out. It took me 5 days to go over because it was all uphill, and 3 days to come back because it was downhill. They're the sort of things that we got up to, and as far as being larrikins, I think that's quite normal for the sappers. I was a craftsman, so I classed myself as an engineer, and I really had a most wonderful, after we came out of New Guinea, we re-equipped and we ended up in Balikpapan in Borneo. I think the engineers were in the second wave. The war ended. There's 15 in our unit. We lost our captain, well one, staff sergeant, 3 corporals, and Muggins was the 4th corporal. I ended up with 4 blokes in our unit, so I ran the unit with 4 blokes. We had a ball. Anyhow, to cut a long story short, came home and living in Sydney. I mastered in 1946. I joined the RSL in 1943 after we came out of New Guinea, and I've really my life in the Sappers, with the Sappers. I think it's the most wonderful team to be associated with. And I'd like to, at this stage, I'd like to draw your attention to Bill Abbott. Thanks, Abbott family. Bill was the most he was the most wonderful man that I've ever struck. He was a mate of mine. We did a lot of swimming together, and as an engineer, being a frontline man, I think I've spoken before about this. I think Bill was blown up 4 or 5 times. He was wounded at least 3 times to my knowledge. Yet Bill, you didn't even know he had a scratch. He was the most wonderful, and thanks folks for coming. I really appreciate that. The same as our friend here, I'm very privileged to be part of your life. And what did I get out of the army? I ended up with 22,000 mates. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil, that was great. Bob, we're going to get Phil and Bob to lay the wreath. With the poppies, we'll do that after the service. They went with songs to the battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted. They felt with fate with their faces to the foe. They shall not grow old, as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
Captain Party, inwards, turn.
Be upstanding, please.
Captain Party, wave! March!
Thank you. Please be seated. And to close our 75th anniversary service. Thank you, Dawn.
Can't get very good just yet. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our 75th anniversary sunset service, and how beautiful it was. Our veterans of the 7th Division Engineers will be very proud to know that they have not been forgotten, and to commemorate the 75th anniversary of them in such a manner, we will make sure that they are not forgotten. I would like to thank Brigadier Budd for his informative address and for his presence here today staying with us for lunch. Thank you, Brigadier Bud. We know you're a very busy man, especially today, of all days, and the association is very appreciative of you. Thank you very much. I would like to thank the Catapult Party and the Padre. Both parties are from the SME for making this very special occasion a memorable one. I would like to thank the Mayor of Randwick, Mr. Singh, for coming and joining us here today. Thank you, sir, for being part of this occasion. I would also like to thank very much Mr. Peter Scott from the 2nd Sixth for his dedication to the history of events of his father, Frank Scott, and his offer of doing his book launch with us here today. I know a great deal of work has gone into this book, Peter, and the association feels very honoured that you did your launch with us. Thank you very much, Peter. I'd like to thank the committee for all the effort it was putting into making this day and service happen, and a great job was done by all. Your committee are a dedicated bunch of people who I've had the best time with over the years and who serve you very, very well. You, the members, and so many of you have joined us today. Can't thank you enough for that. Such support is fantastic to see. Thank you, because without you, there is no association, as Brigadier Bud pointed out quite earlier, to keep the memory alive of our gallant men. As you know, I've taken the difficult decision to step down as your Secretary Treasurer due to other commitments in my life at the moment, and that I cannot give my all to you, what I've been doing over the years. It's been an absolute privilege to have been with you for so many years. I have met so many individual people, and thank you for making this possible for me. Without you, I would not have had this opportunity to do so, and it's something I will cherish for the rest of my life. I've learned so much from you all, and I'm sure that after today's events, I have no doubt that the wonderful association of the 7th Fleet Engineers will keep on going for many years to come. Now, we did have a very special prize today, and the curator of the museum, Sebastian Spence, was supposed to be with us, and also Warrant Officer Michelle Russell. There's a little problem out at the museum that just kept very, very busy. So unfortunately we can't present this to Sebastian and Michelle, so Plan B is Brigadier Bud. Now I would like Mr. Phil Steele, and I'd like Zappa Garside, front and centre please. On behalf of the veterans, the 7th Division Engineers, who would like to present this beautiful plaque to be placed into the wonderful new museum that you have out of Holsworthy, on behalf of the veterans, not the association, but on behalf of the veterans, for being their school, you brought them home alive. And this we'd like to thank and accept that with grace. Thank you very much. One for the perfect diamond, please, gentlemen. Wait a minute. Okay, Thank you very much, gentlemen. Tea and coffee is served, as you know, out the back. If you'd like to join us and have to finish off the end of a beautiful, beautiful day. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, with absolute honour and pleasure, I will take that back to the War Museum. I encourage you all to find time to go visit it sometime and see what a magnificent effort that Sebastian, Michelle and their team have put into our fantastic new War Museum. A labour of love for them, and you'll be amazed when you go out there, and this will be put in a place of honour. I'll just highlight to you tomorrow night, for those of you that like to watch a bit of television, if you watch the 60 Minutes program, we have a special being run by the 60 Minutes special about the first field company engineers, first AIS landing with the 3rd Brigade on the 25th of April 1915. It's well worth looking at that special. You talk about associations and labours of love, and Peter, your book. Catherine Job, and some of you might remember Catherine Job was a late line at 7:30 reporter with the ABC for many, many years. Recently discovered that her great uncle, Sappho Cleve Page, was one of the 5 members of the first field company engineers that died on the 25th of April 1915 as part of the initial landings into Italy. And has done an enormous amount of research in putting together a story, which the 60 Minutes organisation has taken up for us. It's due to air tomorrow night, so have a look and see another part of our core history being told to everyone in Australia for the significance of what the Sappers did, just like this great organisation. So thanks very much.
Before we do the coffee and tea, is it all right to come up? Maybe a table at a time, and we'll do the populations as a ref. Thank you.